3 points caught my attention when I took my first 350-mile road trip in my new Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive. It coincides with 3 things that you want to hear most about road tripping with a Tesla EV, that being range, charging and efficiency. As does the next person, I had expectations about how the road trip would go, and whilst the trip was a raging success, I got some abnormally good results such as the sheer charging speed. That actually caught me by surprise, and so much so that I can't help but think, what is Tesla hiding in this new rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y? As it was outperforming the benchmark test for the same car and battery, so the charging speed seemed to be way faster than it should have been for its state of charge. And I honestly wasn't anticipating that sheer speed and max charging rate that I did experience. Therefore, this video is going to offer an interesting take into the supercharging performance of this car. Then there was the range and efficiency, which does go in hand with each other, and I really want to say that this was in line with expectations, but equally the results were actually pretty inconsistent. Like, one stretch was super efficient and then the next one was performing way worse than predicted. I do have some theories as to why this may be, but I also feel I actually understand the limitations of the car and the road tripping dynamics of this car just that little bit more now. As from time to time, I do get comments from you folks asking for me to comment on your own sort of motorway or highway commute. Therefore, this video should hopefully give you just greater insight into the real world dynamics of that. And that's with a family of 4, the car was fully loaded up, and I mean, how much more real world can you get than that? So if this video sounds like an interesting insight, please do hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Right, let's get deep into it. So first up, I'm going to pick up and highlight the charging speed from my charging stop before actually talking about the charging session itself. And this exceeded my expectations as the charge stop was much quicker than anticipated, and that was actually down to the aggressive charging curve that I got. Now, this is exactly why it got me excited. Why did it outperform expectation? Well, if you've seen my videos before, this is a made in Berlin Tesla Model Y rear-wheel drive. It's not the BYD Tesla Model Y, but actually a rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Y with the usual CATL battery pack. Long story short, if you don't know the difference between the two, typically all rear-wheel drive Tesla Model Ys come with the CATL battery pack. However, Berlin also produces an exclusive rear-wheel drive Model Y, and that comes with the BYD Blade battery that, whilst rated at the same range of the CATL variant, it is a supercharging monster. 10 to 80% in around 18 minutes, and that's thanks to its ability to retain a high level of charge, followed by a slow tapering of speed. Now, this charge data actually comes direct from EVKX, I believe it was, as I found it's best illustrates what I'm actually trying to explain via that chart. For comparison, the CATL version that I have should hit its high rate of charge very early on and then taper down much quickly in comparison, and on average its 10 to 80% charge takes around 27 minutes. So bringing this all back to my experience and what actually occurred, I arrived at the supercharger at 45% state of charge. Therefore, based on evkx.net's data, I should have started at around 96 kilowatts, but after plugging in, I actually topped at 169 kilowatts. From what I saw, and by the time I actually managed to get the photo, I was actually pulling 162 kilowatts, meaning it was a magic 69% higher than it should have been. And if we actually flick back to the chart, you can clearly see that we're actually starting at the top when really we shouldn't be. Now, I was doing my normal service stop errands, I was actually getting coffee and having brekkie with the family, but by the time that we actually sat down, we'd hit 85% in 18 minutes, whereas their data states that this should have taken 22 minutes, for which our high starting point, it accelerated. So it started at the very top at 45%, and then it tapered a lot faster, and it did start to consolidate around this 85% figure point, which were then only 1 kilowatt faster than the actual EVKX's data. And in comparison, previously with my Model 3 rear-wheel drive, it just wouldn't hit that 170 kilowatts max charge rate unless you're actually in the low state of charge. It would never have achieved this in that high 40% range for sure. Therefore, it does raise a serious question. Why did this happen in the Berlin 2024 Model Y rear-wheel drive? Has there been some sort of unannounced improvement to the charging curve that's software driven, or is this from some kind of improvement from the hardware behind the scenes? Either way, I was super thrilled with just how quick it charged. Definitely did seem like an improvement over my Model 3 SR Plus. Moving on to the vehicle's efficiency, my 350 mile round trip to Whitby really is a drive of two halves. One half is your typical motorway drive, and then after the supercharging trip, it really feathers down from sort of a dual carriageway to single carriageway to then to country lane driving, especially over the moors where it's particularly a pleasant drive, but there's just a variance of elevation and there's actually a hairpin to manoeuvre. First stint got me there in just over 4 miles a kilowatt hour, and this incorporates a loaded boot, front, 4 passengers, and we were doing a steady 70 miles per hour with some light rain around, for which efficiency also took a note from the motors as they were helping to precondition the battery to optimise the charging performance, which we now know was way worth it, as without navigating to the supercharger, that then initiates the actual preconditioning process automatically if you didn't know, for which we would never have achieved them abnormally high charging speeds at such a high state of charge. Therefore, a safe motorway assumption with these negatives in play should be 250 watt-hours a mile or 4 miles a kilowatt-hour when doing motorway driving in summer conditions. During a slower stint of 60 miles per hour, lots of elevation changes and quite a few bends, this car very much starts to excel and align to a more optimum speed as consumption then lowers to 221 watt-hour miles or then 4.5 miles a kilowatt hour. Not forgetting the battery starts off raring to go from the supercharger, the weight being hauled, and remembering this is a family SUV for which isn't going to be the most aero efficient of vehicles to complete a road trip in. I'd say these figures were very competitive. Combined trip one way was therefore 235 watt-hour miles or 4.25 miles a kilowatt hour, and these weren't completely optimum circumstances with the rain in the air and on the ground, but it was on that nearer side of optimum conditions. The return trip was very similar at 238 watt-hour miles for the same stint reversed. No rain, but more traffic thanks to it being a bank holiday weekend. The motorway was a little low this time round at 223 watt-hour miles. However, there was quite a bit of temporary 50 zones here and there, which does make the car more efficient around this 50 and 60 miles per hour point than at 70 miles per hour, as you'd expect. Total trip then averaged 4.3 miles a kilowatt hour or 232 watt-hour miles, and this should really give you a good indication just how much speed that you travel at does actually influence the efficiency, thus your range, for which I'm now going to extrapolate for you if this doesn't make any sense. So at best case, if you're traveling at 70 miles per hour and your average speed drops occasionally due to traffic with some 50 to 60 miles per hour speed zones, thanks to bloody smart motorway service works, whatever, I'd say based on my circumstances, 4.3 miles to 4.5 miles a kilowatt hour is achievable in summer conditions, and that's around 247 to 257 real world mileage, not using any additional mileage as well from that unusable 2.5 kilowatt hour part of the battery. That I find is very acceptable circumstances for us at least. I had mentioned in a previous video how 4.5 to 5.5 miles per kilowatt hour is achievable for city driving, and so this kind of performance difference does seem in line with expectations. I also stumbled over a different set of interesting set of data on social media, and it confirmed some of the comparative figures for different Model Y trims and their motor variations, for which my Tesla Model Y would be the second one from the top here with that 3D7 motor. And I have converted the combined figure into watt-hour miles, for which a combined range would total 4.53 miles a kilowatt hour, and the city driving figure here was at 5.8 miles a kilowatt hour, for which for me I do feel that that latter is just a little bit too ambitious. However, my experiences really aren't that far off. I will be repeating this same journey in the winter in just a few months' time, therefore the winter comparison will be very interesting, not to only compare the efficiency and the range, but also how will it affect the supercharging speed of the vehicle. As with the lower temperatures, I will be expecting that to affect the range, the efficiency, as well as the supercharging speed. Therefore, this future video will offer a direct comparison to this summer trip that we've just had. So, looking to round things up, To conclude, just how good is this rear-wheel drive 2024 Tesla Model Y as a road tripping car? Well, considering it's just the standard Model Y variant, it absolutely kicks some butt. Particularly the charging speed was much faster than anticipated. I still don't quite understand why it started so high at such a high state of charge, but I'm absolutely here for that. Whether it be from hardware or software, there does seem to be some notable improvements that I am pleased to report. The efficiency and range was in line with expectations for this Berlin Model Y with the 3D7 motor and CATL battery. It does indeed seem like it's at its top of its game, and that the data I found does seem to back that up. Yet the official rated figures, I don't think they've ever changed on range at least, but I feel that there has definitely been some increased efficiency in the background and thus increasing real world range. So achieving the range closer to the official rated figures is surely going to be a good thing that does need to be highlighted from personal experience. So how did you find today's video? Do you know why we actually achieved that max charging speed despite the high state of charge? What consumption figures do you get in your Model Y? Do let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, do share it with any friends or family that may find this video beneficial. You folks have been great, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.